dear young people of America, do not be afraid. The deepest joy there is in life is the joy that comes from God.
All right. We're back filming another episode of the Young Church Podcast. I have two new guests here today. I'll allow them to briefly introduce themselves. We'll start over here with Andrew. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Andrew Carniglia. Yeah, that's me.
No. What do you do? You're just Andrew.
I'm just Andrew. I go to Cal State Long Beach.
Go Sharks. Fins up.
I am part of a Catholic community there, Catholic club called Beach Catholic. Go Beach Catholic. We don't have a Logan. We don't have a logo. And yeah, I've been graced to be the president of that club. Yeah.
Cool.
To you,
Miguel.
Yeah. So my name is Miguel Macias Casas. I just graduated from Cal State Long Beach in the spring of last year. Go Sharks. Fins up.
Let's go Sharks.
Right now I'm doing EMT classes at school in Anaheim. And I've been involved in youth ministry for the past, I think, almost 7 years now at St. Cornelius. So been around, in charge of our young adult group here at the parish too. So yeah.
Great. Thanks for the intro, guys. So one of the things that we're trying to do with the Young Church Podcast is we really want to hear the testimonies and the witness of young Catholics who love God, who have experienced God, and who want to share that joy with other people. Now, I know from experience, Miguel, in working with you, I think it was 2 years ago, you went to this camp, this notorious, no, it's not notorious, this camp called Camp Wojtyla. Okay, now it's in Colorado. And I didn't know much about the camp other than it's like a summer like Catholic youth camp. But man, when this guy came back, he was a different person. He was known through his alter ego, Camper Dale. But all that's to say is I want to hear a little bit about this camp because I know you and Andrew, you just went this last year.
Yes, sir.
You guys have experienced like profound joy, community in Christ. I mean, we're talking radical change. Like I see huge freedom that you have now and how you just walk and how you talk and the confidence that you have and the joy that you have. And I kind of, I just want to unpack that this episode. So I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me a little bit about your camp experience or first off, I know you think you convinced him to go this year. Was that it?
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit about your first year experience and then how you got Andrew to go this year and then I'll hear about your experience.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start out. Camp Wojtyla, like you kind of hit it on the nose. It is a Catholic like outdoor adventure summer camp. But their mission statement really is to just use creation to help bring teens closer to Christ, like through creation, through being uncomfortable, through just experiencing different things. So I went for my first summer in 2023, and it was a blessing. I had a friend from Cal State kind of recommend that I should go. And I went, not really having any outdoor backpacking experience. I'd never been camping before. That was like wild.
That's crazy, man. You spent all summer outside.
I did, yeah.
Sleeping not with a tent, right?
No, there's no, yeah. So because of the property that we're on, it's like, there's a lot of stuff there, but we have teepees for all of the campers that come. So they're pretty nice, like canvas teepees, pretty spacious with cots. But for all of the counselors, they're either sleeping in hammocks or they're sleeping on the ground underneath a tarp. And so it's pretty, they just throw you in there, but they just give you so much formation. The first 3 weeks that you're there as a counselor, or if you're on staff for like photography, like what Andrew was doing, it's all formation. They're all giving you classes. Like you're getting to know the community. Every day you wake up and you have a holy hour, you have talks. Well, I guess I should talk about Scott and Annie. They're the founders of the camp. They started in 2007. And Scott is a professor at St. John Vianney, the seminary in Denver. And so he gives us formational classes. They'll bring in speakers from like mental health professionals that were working with children with like different things that like what we should expect. We go on like hikes. They teach us like all these building for like 3 weeks of like how do you actually like run little small groups? How do you like lead groups? And then once the campers get there, we take them on different hikes on property or off property. Every day they go to mass. They have different activities. They'll do archery. They'll do highline where they just kind of like put on a harness and clip in and pull themselves through the trees. For our high schoolers, we'll take them whitewater rafting. We'll go rock climbing in the Rockies. We'll go to Jurassic Park, probably one of the most famous rock climbing places in Colorado, where like people just like love. It's like the view is beautiful. You get to see, what is it, like the backside of Longs or something?
You see Meeker.
Mount Meeker.
Mount
Wait,
Meeker.
Jurassic Park, is that completely unrelated to the movie? It's just called Jurassic Park.
It's just
or
because
they filmed something
they're
there.
no. Their pinnacle like climb. It's called the Edge of Time. It's like this gnarly like cliffside.
Okay.
That, like you can I think it's Longs because you're near Longs.
Well,
Longs Peak.
Okay, so it's like the main view is Meeker, and then off to the right of it, if you're like facing Meeker from Jurassic Park, it's Longs as well. Which
Yeah,
is,
And for those who don't know, in Colorado, they're pretty notorious for their like huge mountains because it's like the Rockies run right through there. Longs Peak is probably like one of the most famous and like dangerous ones. Like they have a lot of people that die there, so it's just like a beautiful view. And we get to take the kids to go there and like go rock climb on real rock with harnesses, and they do stuff. So like just the entire week that they're there, they're just having like a pretty good time, like getting together, because we also separate it. We have like guys weeks and girls weeks, and then for the counselors, if you're a counselor that week with the boys, you're just being a counselor, and then the girls go on like a support role as Sherpa. So like everything's like working together, but the guys really get an experience when they're there of just like brotherhood, and the girls get like sisterhood. Yeah, I don't. There's like so much to it, and for me it was like such a crazy experience because I didn't even know what I was up for. Like I got there,
Yeah.
and it was raining like every day, which doesn't happen in Colorado. It was just like crazy. Like it was like dark. It was cold. I didn't
Like
bring
the first week or so?
first week when I got
Yeah.
there. I was struggling so much. Like I was like, why did I sign up to do this? This is awful. We have porta potties. I'm like, I'm using porta potties. I'm out here of my own free will. Like they're not even paying me.
Yeah,
like
I missed
why
the
did I
porta
choose to
potties.
do that? But after a certain point, just being in a community where everyone's like, this just sucks together, and we're like all praying together and we're going through. Eventually, you just come to like accept it in a good way. Like you're like, I can't change my surroundings. I can't change what's going on with the weather. So I'm just gonna offer it up to God. I'm just gonna like make the best out of it. And I think once we made that switch as a community, because everyone was pretty like down, there's just so much joy, so much freedom. Like we just do so many different silly like skits or other stuff for the campers. We're like getting them so excited. We're like, doing things that most other summer camps do, but all of the staff that's working there is like so bought in on making this the best experience for those people that it just is like infectious. Like you just want to give of yourself more. And like, even though it's like 12 o'clock in the morning and you got to do a trash run to throw all the trash in the dumpsters, everyone's doing it with smiles. We're just singing. We're like having so much joy and freedom. And so when I left, I was like, I want to come back. And then I came back to Cal State Long Beach. I started my Bible study, and Andrew is one of the guys that they told me to like come in. And at that, I guess you could start sharing a little bit about where that sort of came in for you.
Yeah, so when I moved to Cal State Long Beach, I was not Catholic at the time. I was going to church every once in a while, but yeah, nothing where I'm at now. And yeah, I met Beach Catholic, the Catholic club, very providentially after Mass one day. And they invited me to one of their like first events. And just like seeing, because we did adoration at that event. And just seeing that was really, I don't know, I didn't understand it at all. But seeing the way the missionaries and everyone in that room was like looking at Jesus in the Eucharist, I didn't know that was him at the time, but yeah, afterwards, I just was like, okay, I want to be all in. I want to get super involved. I don't even know why, but I want to get super involved. And so I went up to the missionaries afterwards, like, how can I get involved? I want to be a part of this club. And then Miguel was one of the person I introduced myself to, because he did like some talk, like some men's, I think he was like promoting men's night. Yeah. And I just like saw the fire in his like voice. And I was like, that is really cool. Like he has some story to him. And yeah, I was just super on fire for it as well, and just introduced myself. And yeah, I remember you used to like, when people would introduce themselves to you, you would like write down what their majors, like what they did, so you can remember their name better. And you wrote down like Andrew Film.
Yeah.
So
I'm really bad with names, so it helps. You
so
gotta
I was
have
just known as
something.
that. And then yeah, and then eventually joined his Bible study. And yeah, getting to walk with him in that, and then discipleship. And then after Bible study one day, I don't remember why, but we were talking about camp for whatever reason. And
That's all I talked about. For
yeah.
like a year.
But he showed me one of the promo videos, and I was still doing film a lot at that time. And I was just like, I could do that. I could make one of those videos. And he was like, you should apply. And I was like, okay, I will. And so I applied, and it just felt like right. Like, I didn't understand it at the time, but I was just like very excited, and I had no idea why. And then Miguel was like talking about it. He's like, dude, you're not ready for camp. You're not ready for camp. You're going to get there.
Ready.
You're going to get there. So I got accepted to the role, and yeah, he was just like, you're not ready for camp. Like, you're going to get there on your first like week, and you're just gonna be like, why did I do this? And there's like these birds that like sound like bears when they're like swooping
It's crazy,
down.
dude.
There's these weird birds. Yeah. We didn't hear them that lot until the end of the summer, I felt like, but they, in the middle of the night, will like swoop down and open their mouth, and that noise, like the air going into their mouth, sounds like a bear right next to you.
What do you mean? It's like a growl? Like, what do you? What's that?
Wait,
What does
so
it
like-
sound like?
so
Yeah,
like-
imitate him.
For reference, this is my first night. I didn't know how a sleeping bag worked properly. So like for circulation on the sleeping bag, you got to put your feet all the way at the bottom. So just if you don't know. So I was like halfway out. So I was like freezing cold because at that time like snow was just barely melting. I was cold. I'm hearing all these sounds everywhere. I'm hearing the coyotes, and the coyotes throw their voices. So it makes it sound like there's a lot of them, even if there's only a couple crazy things. And then I hear this like, like it literally sounds like there's a bear like right there, and but it's just a bird, you know,
It's just a
What the
stupid
heck?
bird. It's just a stupid bird diving down to catch insects.
trying to like catch insects.
That's
with the bird.
crazy.
But yeah, but that's what you come to, and you're just there, and you're like, dude, what did I? It's just yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I got to camp, and yeah,
What was your
epic.
experience, dude?
my experience. You summed it up very well. That was epic. But yeah, so I was more on the media team, and so I wasn't doing what the counselors were doing. I wasn't pouring myself out for the kids, but I was doing that in a different way. And so I was in a very more observational point, but still very involved with the community, like just as much as everyone else. But I was actually very grateful for the position that I was in, because I got to observe more and see both the Sherpa and the counselor side every week. And so since I was on media, I was going on twice as many hikes, twice as many times rock climbing, because I'm going with both girls and guys.
Mm-hmm. Can you guys
Yeah.
just explain again the counselor role and then the
Mhm.
Sherpa role, just for people listening? They're like, what are you talking about? So at camp, there's counselors and there's Sherpas. What
So-
are the roles?
So I would say like we get hired a staff of maybe like 40 young adult. Most of them are college or recent college graduate Catholics that are just wanting to serve. And then we also have like 3 or 4 or 3 for media. Last year we had 2, or 2 years ago we had 2
Yeah.
that are like recording and doing. And then we have like other roles like nannies, because a lot of the full-time staff have children to just take care of them. But everyone gets this, like on that counselor role, gets to serve as a counselor. But because we have kind of like alternated guy and girl weeks, it's like when it's a guy week, the guys are the counselors. And then because it's like very outdoorsy, like is the culture, like that's like what camp is surrounded. We use the term Sherpa, which comes from like mountain guides, like for like Mount Everest, like these people that like live up there that are like their whole job is to help guide people like
the
to the
mountain.
top of the
Yeah.
mountain. And in that way, like the Sherpa, like when you're not being a counselor that week, you're helping to create an experience to help guide these like teens that have the best experience that week. And so like you're cooking the food, you're like running the different activities like archery, highline fishing, crafts. You're like driving vehicles if you need to drive vehicles for different like off property hikes or different things that we do. You're like taking out trash. You're coming up with the skits for them to do. You're doing music for mass. You're like basically taking care of all the stuff so that the counselors in that week can just be fully present to their campers and like give the best experience for them.
Yeah, there's the title of Sherpa is so cool because like the people that take these climbers up to Mount Everest, like the people that climb Mount Everest are the ones that get all the praise, get all the recognition in the magazines, but the Sherpa are the one doing like the heavy work. They know how to climb the mountains and stuff like that. And so every week, like you're only seeing a quarter of what the Sherpas are doing behind the scenes. Like Miguel said at the beginning, just like 1 a.m. trash runs, which are pretty epic though. But but yeah, it's just like you don't get to see. And so it's a very self-sacrificing position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you alternate between those two roles, counselor and Sherpa. I'm sure in each one of those roles you're learning things, you're taking things away. I guess as like a counselor, what are I guess some of the best memories that you have? I know you've talked about like Emmaus walks and things like that. Like maybe just highlight some of the things that you do as a counselor.
Yeah. So definitely my first year, I had just a crazy experience of like feeling like a dad. Cause like for the, basically like the layout for the summer, we have 4 weeks that are middle school. And then we have 1 week that's like high school, and that's like a 9-day program. And then we also have smaller like high school programs that are running during the middle school weeks, but there are certain people that do that. It's Outpost. Let's go Outpost. But like but I was base camp the entire time. So I didn't really get, well, this year I got to do 1 week out. That's a whole different thing. I won't get on a tangent, but yeah. Yeah, I just felt like a dad because like I just would be like in a tent with like 10 middle school boys, like trying to get them all like brushing their teeth, going, and like, you know, their mountain lions and other stuff that come out at night. So like they can't just go to like use the restroom on their own. They might get lost or other things. So I'm getting waking up at like 1 a.m, 3 a.m, like 5 a.m to go take them to go pee. And it's like really like having to shepherd them because most of them like come from good families, I would say. Like they're like the faith is somewhat present. Some of them don't come with families that have no faith at all. Like, you know, their grandma signed them up and sent them. And so you're just really learning how to like accompany them and like loving them where they're at. And it's hard sometimes, you know? It's hard when you're like doing all this fun stuff and the kids are just not paying attention, you know, they're just like focused on their own thing. It's like, can't you see that, like, not even like the faith stuff, like just like the fun stuff, like the goofy stuff, they're like not, it's like, can't you see that they're like trying their best to like make this a good thing? And you're just like needing to like see that frustration like that I have is like, why am I having such a hard time to like love them? You know, it's like they're just being kids. And like I think the biggest takeaway that I took from like that year of being a counselor is like I struggle so hard to like love these kids and they're being difficult. And like I've done so many worse things in my life. Like I've really hurt people. Like I've sinned greatly, but yet God doesn't struggle to love me. God loves me so profoundly and so deeply, like without hesitation. It's like, and I can't do that for other people. And just like this moment of humility of understanding like how deep the Father's love is for me, but like in a concrete way, like knowing. And then the other side of like sort of feeling that like father role was like, no matter how bad the day was when I was there, like at night when we were like, we read them Narnia, or we read them other like mostly Narnia is what we read to them, just to like kind of encapsulate that wonder, that mystery, so they fall asleep like bit by bit. And like once they all like went to bed, like it didn't matter how difficult the day was, how like hard that they were, but it just was all worth it. To, you know, to be in that piece of like, you know, I'm doing my part.
Yeah, wow, that's incredibly profound what you just said. And I think to realize that, you know, you're so young too, like you experience what it's like to be a dad, just because by virtue of taking care of middle school kids, being, you know, awakened throughout the night. And yeah, that's such a great experience. That's wonderful. Now for you, Andrew, on your end, what were some of the kind of highlights on media side? I know you were observing a lot. What were some of the things that you saw that you were like, wow, like I had this profound, you know, revelation, insight, grace that God has given me?
Yeah, so media side of things, we would do interviews every week for the kids. We would interview like 12, 13 kids. And that was really when I saw like the fullness of like what God was doing in these kids. Their answers were insane sometimes. Like, I can't remember specifically off the top of my head some examples, but just like these kids are all the way from like 12. Like, what's the youngest age we have?
We have incoming 6th graders.
Yeah.
So it's like 11?
11, yeah.
11, 12, all the way up to 18-year-olds. And yeah, like the 11-year-olds will have some like, I don't even know how to like explain it. It was just me and the girl that I was interviewing them with, we would just like look at each other and just be like, how are these kids like giving these answers? They were like insane.
Do you mind if I share one that I remember?
Yeah.
That's like been crazy. It's like I think one of the kids was like talking about the mountains. He's like, God has made these mountains which are like so beautiful that like people just see and they like climb and they're like, you know, people care about so much, and yet I am worth more than all of those mountains combined.
Yeah,
these are like
yeah.
middle school
that's
kids.
a crazy
dude.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's even cooler too, because like when we're interviewing the kids, like we're watching, listening to what they're saying, but I forget a lot of the times because you're interviewing 12 kids. And then at the end of the week, we have a guy down the mountain, Danny Anderson, who does a lot of media for Focus, and he's like the Catholic videographer. And so I'll be sending all the footage to him every week. And at the end of the week, when the parents come, we show them that video. And you get to like re-experience it all over again. And that was like such a gift to like hear what the kids are saying, because you forget what they're said. And just, yeah, it's so profound. I don't know.
And the people that go to this camp come from all over the U.S.? Yeah, it's not just like Colorado area.
All over the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not as frequent as people from all, like they are all from the U.S., but we've had campers from, I think, France. We had one last year. We had another one. They're from South America. I can't remember which country exactly. Even our counselors too. We have people from, I think we had, it was before my time, but we had someone that was coming from Ireland, I think. Don't quote me on that.
Ireland.
I think he had the accent. And then this summer we had a religious brother from Australia, the Missionaries of God's Love, Brother Sam. Really awesome. Yeah. So like we really Kelton, he's the assistant director of camp, but he's basically one of he's in charge of hiring, like kind of like what are we doing day to day, what are our tasks, and sort of rolling that out. He says like they do scour the earth to find the best and like that they can find to like run camp. And like I think this past year we got 200 applications and we only take like 50 or so for the summer, which is like, it's such a blessing that so many people want to serve.
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm sure out of those 200 applicants, they're all
good, yeah.
very qualified. Because to reiterate, this is something that you signed up to serve 3 months where you're sleeping on the ground. You're being woken up at like 1 a.m., 3 a.m. You have birds that are bears. You have like all this crazy stuff. You're not getting paid, and you're doing it just to serve and to love. So, I mean, just for the type of person that will, certainly I didn't apply for this. Okay, like I'll be the first one to tell you guys. When I heard the bird bear, I was like, you know what, I'm out. But
Miguel tried scaring me.
But yeah, so I just want to highlight that already the type of person that's going to be very interested in this, I'm sure, is very qualified. So yeah, that's crazy to hear. I think another thing that makes the camp experience so valuable is the fact that these kids get to like disconnect from where their kind of home environments. Not that it's bad, but just to be in a different place, to break the rhythm of everyday life, to be in nature and things like that. And I feel like that's such a, being here in the city, and for a lot of people listening that are probably from like urban or suburban areas, there's an element to God and nature that's kind of forgotten. We live in a society where we don't really engage with the unknown and things like that. So I kind of want you guys to talk about the relationship with like God and nature and how you use that as like counselors in camp to evangelize, really.
Yeah. So at camp, did this come up at staff training when the 4 harmonies?
I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, Scott Powell introduced us to something called the 4 harmonies, and yeah, that is really like the foundation of the beauty of camp, the beauty of God at camp, and what we're made for. And so the first harmony is relationship with ourselves, or no, relationship with God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Relationship with God. So we're made to love God, be loved by God, for God, and then relationship with each other. Does the order matter?
A little bit.
Okay. Relationship with ourselves. Be holy.
Ourselves.
Okay. Be holy with ourselves.
To know who we
saints,
are as God made us to be.
Yeah. And then relationship with each other, to be in community, to serve each other. And then the last one, which is harmony with creation, in nature, what God created, where we were made to dwell. And Scott gave another talk talking about how earth was like the tabernacle, and like creation, and just the beauty in that, and how we truly had everything we could have possibly like needed, and man have been given like in his image and likeness to make bread from flowers and all these great things, all these great things we have in creation. But then for all of us living in cities and these areas which are, everything's controlled. You can be cold when you want to, you can be hot when you want to, and yeah, you just truly have everything in a city. But when you're taken out into the nature, into the middle of the Colorado Rockies, where a thunderstorm can come at any time, lightning can strike near you at any time, and you have to rush to base camp. You have to carry a camper on your shoulders because they don't have their shoes on. Or it starts raining out of nowhere. You guys are outside hiking. Yeah, you're just uncomfortable. And you can grow in that sense. That's another thing too on the hikes. Like, we would have to get up at 2 a.m. in the morning and start hiking these mountains because at like 6 a.m. because if you're up there above tree line, because these mountains are so tall, if you're up there above tree line by around 11 a.m., a storm comes rolling in from the Rockies every single day. And if you're up there, like, you could die. Like, there's lightning.
You're the tallest thing on a mountain with no support, and the rock is mostly metal. You know, there's like iron and other stuff, and that's just conductive. So you just got to get up early.
Yeah. So I think I want to pick up on this because, you know, being a city boy, I think nature is like sometimes like walk barefoot outside and like touch my grass in my backyard, or maybe there's like this park by my house and I'm like, you know, I sit down maybe and I'm like looking at the trees. Maybe I hear a couple birds chirping, and that's like the extent of nature for me. But it's so controlled. Like, I remember talking to a friend about it. He said, like, even the parks that you're around, like, they're there because they were planned to be there. Like, everything is controlled.
Yeah.
And so I think there is an element of just being completely displaced and at the whim of God's creation that's going to, like, do something to a person.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm trying to figure out for, like, people listening, like, what is it that they're missing that they get from this experience of, like, just being thrown into the wilderness?
So to kind of circle back to the 4 harmonies, because I think a part of that too is like those are the 4 relationships we were made for: God, ourselves, other people, and nature. But obviously it's not just like all hunky-dory. Like, you know, it wasn't perfect. Like, we have fall, and what happens in that fall is that all of these relationships sort of fall out of whack, right? Man now no longer has just this like solidified relationship with God. There's like that separation that requires Jesus to come and fix that. We don't really view ourselves as we're supposed to, right? We have all this shame, all this guilt, all this brokenness, and also Jesus. And then with other people, same. And the same is true for creation, but in a special way, because instead of creation being something that God gives us, like how we have God in the garden with Adam, where it's like, this is all, everything is under your dominion, like, you know, this is all for you. It now is in opposition to us. Like, you know, we're like, weather is dangerous, like what Andrew was talking about with storms and these other things. And when we're talking about like what you're saying, nature on your lawn or these other things, it's like, that's not really, I mean, it's technically nature. Like, you know, it is something that grows.
It's natural.
It's natural,
yeah.
But it's not really nature.
Yeah.
And I think you can kind of see like what you're missing when you read the Gospels and you see what does Jesus do, because Jesus, before he started his ministry, he went out into the wilderness for 40 days. When he's going to go talk to God, he climbs the mountain. Why is that? Because it takes him out of the world for a moment to sort of be in this private, intimate place with God. And that's kind of like one of the beautiful things about camp, because it is in the heart of like the Rocky Mountains. Like, you know, you're probably like 30, 40 minutes, depending on how good you are at driving mountain roads from the nearest like town like that, or nearest like actual like city like area. And it's just like you're not in your own area. Like, you're so out of your own league. Like, you know, if something comes, like, you have to adapt to it. It's not going to adapt to you. You can't just go inside, put your blanket on. And you learn very quickly that you're not God. And I think those reminders where you're just so out of your comfort zone really helps to put you in a disposition where you're like able to hear the voice of the Lord. Because it's really hard when you have all this distraction that's around us in our modern day, that you really do need to kind of go out to hear the voice of God.
Yeah. I liked what you said when like adaptation is like probably the biggest thing, because yeah, you really find out that you are not in control of anything and you are not God. Because the first night I didn't sleep at all. There was just so much wind and it was like super cold. There was one night where the wind was so insane that we all had to like, all of our tarps were gone. all of our hammocks were gone. We had to go into the cars, and the cars were shaking. And so it's just like, I mean, you never get that in a city. Like, you never get that experience. And the first night, or one of the first nights, my setup. So Miguel and I slept on the ground. A lot of people slept in hammocks. So we had to like build our whole tarp setup. And in the middle of the night, it starts raining and the wind blows my tarp off. And if you're like at home, that doesn't happen. Like, you can just go back to sleep. But like in that moment, you're either going to be soaking wet and not going to sleep at all, or you can like adapt and get up and like put the tarp back over and fix your setup. Like, it sucks. Like, you have to wake up and do that. But now that you learn to like adapt into that environment, like, oh no, it's raining. Like, I'm going to go inside. But no, you have to build your setup.
So how do you guys come back happy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm listening to this and I'm like, you know, that sucks. You talk about the wind, like sometimes the AC's blowing a little bit and I'm like, oh man, it's a little chilly. Like, that's like the extent that you know, and you guys are telling me all of this. You're waking up, there's mountain, you're like death, nature. Like, where's this joy come from?
I think it's because we're all suffering together, like in that community. Like, every morning, even if a night like that happens where I got no sleep and my tarp gets completely blown over, you wake up the next day and everyone went through the exact same thing, and you guys can share that experience. And it just like, that community is everything. And even when campers are there, the campers are doing it together as well and growing together. Like, these high school, middle school boys are doing that as well. I don't know, you can speak more to that.
Yeah. I think the community is probably like what does it. Because if I was just doing that by myself, if I'm just in the woods by myself suffering, it's like I think I wouldn't be able to recover from that. But it's like what Andrew says. You have a rough night because of the weather or whatever else, and then especially during staff training, that first week we just get to do a holy hour together as a community. So no matter whatever your baseline for, like, this was just a bad night, you truly do get to like have that time with God, to like surrender that, to like see the goodness. Because I think because the entire community is just restricted on what's going on or what they have there, having that sort of recentering point in Christ and being like, you know what, it's fine. Like, how much more discomfort did God go through for me? And then once you move from that mindset of like, this isn't the worst thing that could be going on in my life, you start to see the joy. You start to see the freedom that really comes from that. Because suffering in life is inevitable. Like, sorry, I messed it up. Pain in life is inevitable. You're going to go through pain. That's something. But like, choosing to truly suffer through it, and like, dude, that is a bit of a choice on your part, to just view the negative of it, to view yourself as a victim, when in reality, the only true victim that there ever was Jesus. He's the only one who's completely blameless, you know? So for us who do have faults and stuff, it becomes sort of sanctifying to go through that, because you're also going through it with a community that's like, okay, this isn't the greatest, but like, how can we make it better? How can we sing a song through the storm to like help cheer up the campers? How can we, like, I don't know, play like dumb games or come up with skits, or like trying to like find, where's Christ in this? Like, Jesus, what are you doing at this present moment? Like, there's got to be some reason for it. God doesn't just let us suffer to suffer. There's got to be, Jesus is in the heart of that storm. And I think camp, because of everyone in there that's just so focused on God, is able to help you find where Jesus is in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that line that you said. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is maybe perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way to view it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. I'm just kind of like thinking about that, and I'm chewing on that. And I guess, what would you say to people who are listening and are like, well, I don't want to suffer. How would you get them to kind of change that perspective? You know, even for me, like, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm like, I suffer. So does that just mean I need to, like, how do I just not suffer? Like, what do you, I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts there? Like, how would you kind of help people see what you've experienced, right? Because you've been on the other side. How do you help them see what you've experienced?
I think it's just that, sorry, thought I was holding this wrong. I think it's that humility in what Miguel said, like realizing, oh, it could be so much worse. And having the humility to admit that and be like, Christ went through so much more. Or even someone else in your life that you can like call back to, like, I could be suffering because it's like really hot outside or something, or it's freezing, but like someone out there has cancer and it could be so much worse. And if you can kind of have that perspective of like, okay, there's a joy in the fact that I'm given the opportunity to like be humbled in that way. And if you have on top of that, like if you have a community that's all doing that exact same thing and you can talk with each other and, suffer together, singing songs in the midst of a storm with the kids, trying to calm the kids down, at 3 a.m. Like there's just something beautiful about that. That's so intuitive, like just built into us, by God. And just, I don't know.
I think a point of clarification too, because I think on the other side of the spectrum, kind of opposed to, there are people that kind of view suffering as like such a good and great thing, where they're like, yeah, like we're supposed to suffer, and it's like, kind of almost like glorifying it, when in reality it's like, no, like suffering is awful. Like if you like suffering, you're probably like a masochist or something. Like something is wrong with you, like but understanding that like there's a beauty in suffering for the sake of love, like because at that point it ceases to just be suffering, but to be a gift. And I think kind of like, because obviously there's a suffering of just being uncomfortable because of the weather, but during the course of camp, there's like people that go to sleep at like 1 a.m. after our Thursday like big night event, our Italian night, washing dishes. And like we don't heat up water, we just have it all in a reservoir. That's freezing cold water. Like your hands are numb after that, and they just like stay up like hours doing all the dishes and everything for love of like who they're serving. Or there's people that like will go wake up like there's people that have to wake up at 2 a.m. to go drive, and there's like Sherpa that wake up even earlier to like wake everyone up to like prepare kind of like the meals to go. There's like this like willingly choosing to like be uncomfortable for the sake of someone else, and I think that's at the heart of what kind of, at least for me, has like changed that perspective, because it's like I'm not just suffering for myself, I'm suffering to become like to give to these other campers, or even at the heart of it, just to be a better, like the person God wants me to be. Kelton, or sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, I think that's really good. The suffering for the sake of love is such a good insight, and almost like maybe I want to like kind of dig our heels in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like when you do that, there's like a grace that you receive, like a mystical consolation, sort of a mystical love that brings you joy. It's a paradox, kind of.
Yeah.
Would you say that's like what it is, kind of like in a weird way, when you're at the reservoir, you're washing the dishes and your hands are numb, but you're doing it because you love someone? There's an inexplicable joy. Is that like, am I getting what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah. No. Okay. This is crazy that you brought this up, because this is another one of the things that I think, like when we set out like the culture for camp, because I think that's a big thing that sets like the community has like a culture and values that Kelton and Scott and Annie worked to instill. And a lot of what the camp is named Camp Wojtyla, which is named after St. John Paul II. Karol Wojtyla, his like name. And one of the quotes that we like always draw back to is that man finds himself in a total gift of self. It's like, he who seeks to save his life shall lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake shall find it. Like that truth that's like you're saying paradoxical, but it's true. It's like when I've been the most tired, been the most like just like poured out like over the summer, is like when I've felt the most fulfilled. Because in reality, you're not going to remember those days where like I got to sleep in for an extra 30 minutes. I got to have like an easy thing. You're going to remember the days where you like didn't get any sleep, where you didn't do these things, because those are the moments when you were loving the most, and those are the ones that matter the most.
Yeah. I think this is huge, and this is why I enjoy doing this, because as you guys tell me this, I'm like learning, and I'm thinking, and I'm processing. When you compare that to maybe like our current culture today, which is like do what's best for you, serve yourself, there's ultimately like an emptiness that comes after that. Like if I'm going to do what's best for me, then like, I'm a little satiated for a bit, like I'm a little happy, and then it leaves and it fades. But what you're describing is like this everlasting kind of joy. Is that fair to say?
We were just laughing because we were talking about that this morning, of like,
Casual.
yeah, just a casual discussion. No, we were talking about the gospel of this world and then the true gospel given by Jesus. And that was one of the points where it's just like, I was caught up myself in like the self-help, find yourself, build yourself up world for a while. And yeah, that's it. Like, that's what the world tells you to do. And yeah, it's a trap and it's finite, but it's not until like we can serve ourselves, like the St. JP2 quote of like truly giving ourselves full of love, is when we actually build ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, so then I feel like you've realized maybe a truth about the cosmos, a paradox of reality, the fuel to the fire that makes us burn, true love. Now you're bringing that back home from camp. And how do you guys find yourself serving now? Where are you finding that joy now? How are you giving back? What are you guys trying to like really leave people? And what are you trying to share about this experience that you've had?
For me, coming back from my first summer, I remember this distinct feeling of kind of like dissatisfaction, almost like, because I had been surrounded by a community of some of the most like wonderful, like I truly do think that there's some of like the most like holy people that I know personally, like that are just like so focused on God and community and like doing it with so much joy. And I come back to like my parish and it's like I love the people here, they're my friends, but just like not seeing that same fire and getting frustrated until I kind of like had this realization too. It was actually crazy because like the Sunday that we go to Saturday vigil mass before we like close out for the summer, everyone goes back to their places. And that Saturday we were reading the gospel for the transfiguration. Like that was the gospel for that Sunday. And that the transfiguration, you're like, Jesus is like at the top, reveals this great glory, this like, divine mystery about himself. And Peter's like, let's put up a tent here. Let's stay here. Like, I want to be here with you. And Jesus like, we can't, like, we got to go down. And I think that's the reality, because it's like, not everyone is going to be able to go to Camp Wojtyla. Not everyone can be a camper, be a counselor, be involved in that ministry or that way. But it's like that joy, that mystery that you had changed in your heart, it's your duty to go and to do that. Because I had honestly lost a lot of hope in the young church. Like young adults, like my age, I was like, most people don't get it. Most people aren't on fire that way. And it just had filled me with so much like sadness and almost feeling like, well, the solution to fix this is just like, taking things more seriously, like, going back to tradition. Like, it's so like trying myself to like instill that fire like artificially, instead of realizing I was like, no, like I'm not going to like change people's lives by like trying so hard to like, you have to do it this way or that. It's like truly being that witness of the love of God, of like that goodness to him. And then like doing that, like, with our confirmation ministry, like you saw the change, like, because I've been working with you for that for a couple of years. And like, I mean, I was trying my best before, but like coming back from camp and like just incorporating a bit of the goofiness, a bit of like that energy, that like fun for our retreats, like the kind of like games that we were doing, giving the different group saints and like just having them come up with chants and like bringing that joy to them in that way. Like most of those candidates are never going to go to camp, like, realistically, but they get a bit of that joy, a bit of that life that comes from the Catholic Church through camp, through me. And I think we're all called to sort of do that. Like in whatever thing gives us life from like the Lord, we're all called to like be that light to other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Because I am in the place that he was his first year coming back, meeting the most holiest people, like just converting. And that is my witness of seeing these people. And so you're just so on fire. And then coming back to get to lead a Catholic club. Yeah, truly, like the transfiguration is so apparent in my life. And yeah, like how do you, I was honestly dreading coming back down the mountain for a while of like, yeah, I'm gonna be put in the position of, okay, I have to, and using that half, like that was in my head for a while, like I have to pour myself out for these people, be the one that is like the holiest, because I went to camp and got this whole experience, like really truly saw God up there. But no, coming back, like what Miguel said is really what I've experienced and sort of like trying to come out of now is artificially like, I'm going to try my hardest because I went to camp and I should be this way. Whereas really it's Christ leading the club and I'm just a vessel for him. And I've been given this camp experience, and put a fire by the Spirit, so that Christ can better lead through me. And yeah, that's something I've really, really wrestled with for a while, just in the last month and a half of being down the mountain. But yeah, I think you hit it on the head. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll get ready to close out right now in a minute. I just kind of want to synthesize what you're saying and kind of leave a message for the viewers. Given through what you've said, what I've been reflecting on, personal experience, when you serve others and sacrifice and suffer for the sake of love, you will have joy. And maybe not everyone's going to have the experience to go sign up and be a pseudo dad for a week and wake up at 2 a.m. and have freezing cold hands and, be evading a storm. But I think these moments can happen to the viewer in every little moment. Like if your mom asks you to wash the dishes, now you can obey and you can do it. But if there's no love there, then it's suffering. Mm-hmm. But if you do it like, I want to respect my mom and I want to save her 10 minutes so she can rest and I love her, I guarantee you Christ will meet you there and you will feel love. And it's a guarantee because this is the pattern of reality. This is the way God and the incarnation, and this is the way reality works. So I encourage whoever's watching, like, if you have to go pick up your sister or your sibling, now you can do it begrudgingly and suffer. Or you can think, you know what? I want to care for my sister. I want to pick her up. I want to be a good role model. Like, you will experience joy. I think it's that simple, and I think people need to realize, like, do not fall into the lies of what the world tells you is joy and look to the cross for joy, right? And so I think as we close and we end, and that's kind of what I'm getting from this experience here, thank you guys so much for coming, sharing your camp experience, and truly, like, living a life of service and love. And I just feel like you probably, like, saved yourself 10 years, in a summer, 10 years in terms of, like, spiritual maturity and understanding and growth, and probably like a 3-month period for what you've been through. And so I see that. I will close in prayer. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Let's close in prayer. Okay. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, I want to thank you for these men and for the ways in which you've worked in them and that you've used them as vessels for your glory. I just ask that just like they have experienced this joy in serving others, that you give us this joy and that you enkindle within us a spirit of service and a spirit to love others well, wherever we're at, whether it be something very small or something huge and life-changing, wherever we're at. I just ask that you give us that prompting of your spirit and you allow us to be docile to you and to your movement in our lives. We ask all of this through your precious Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
All right. That's it. Thank you.